Our next speaker has been the director of the World Food Program's Washington office, D.C. office since March of 2013. He's based in Washington, D.C., and he directs the WFP's interactions with its major partners in the U.S. government and represents WFP in the dialogue with U.S.-based organizations interested in reducing hunger and poverty worldwide. He came to WFP following a 22-year career with the U.S. Agency of International Development, or USAID, where he most recently served as the Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Bureau for Management. I've known John Brause for quite a long time, actually. We've actually floated the Snake River together about 15 years ago. So please join me in welcoming the Director of the Washington, D.C. office of the World Food Program, John Brause.
Wow. Good morning, everybody. It's really great to be here today. Let me just start by saying, on a personal note, I don't know who your marketing people are, but they've really done a tremendous job, because over the last few years, my family's diet has shifted tremendously towards the consumption of pulses. And I think we do it because we know they're good for us, but they're also so diverse, you can really do so many different things with them. And so my wife's sitting out there in the audience somewhere, and she's driving that train, but I wanted you to know that it's really working. But I'm not here to talk about my family's diet. I'm here to talk about why and how the World Food Program uses pulses, to meet the food security needs of millions of people around the world who are in crisis situations or who are chronically malnourished and need the special nutritional benefits of commodities like pulses. So for those of you who may not be familiar with WFP, we are part of the United Nations system of humanitarian agencies. We have about 150 projects in 76 countries, and on average we serve between 75 and 85 million people per year. We have about 15,000 staff around the world, and 90% of them work in the developing world. They work in crisis countries: Syria, South Sudan, Yemen, or in where there are catastrophes like the typhoon in the Philippines or the recent typhoon in Vanuatu. WFP last year had a funding total of $5.5 billion. Our requirements this year are over $7 billion. And we always seem to fall short, notwithstanding the generosity of our donors, but every little bit helps. And at this point, I want to give a big shout out to the Chippewa Valley Bean Company and its partners for the generous contribution they gave to us recently. That contribution will allow us to feed about 1,000 school children for 3 months. So everything really does help us in meeting the needs of the vulnerable around the world. But WFP has two primary goals. One is to save lives in crises, and then the other one, and this is where I think the Global Pulse Confederation could help us push for increased programming. The other one is to try to address the chronic needs of about 800 million people around the world each year. We all know that pulses can play a huge role in improving people's diets, and if we could just target that 800 million people, we not only would make the world a healthier place, but we would certainly increase the consumption of pulses. In trying to reach our first goal, meaning addressing emergency needs, WFP does this by purchasing and delivering pulses and other commodities to people in crisis situations. Last year, we bought commodities in 93 countries. 75 of them were developing countries. Those purchases totaled $1.26 billion and totaled more than 2.2 million tons. But what does that have to do with pulses? Last year, 11% of the commodities that we procured and 20% of the value of the commodities we procured was pulses. We bought over 275,000 tons of pulses from 50 countries, valued at about $168 million. We buy dried pulses like yellow split peas, haricot beans, soybeans, cowpeas, you know them all. But we also buy canned pulses, and we buy commodities that have pulses as an additive to add protein: corn soy blend, wheat soy blend, super cereals. All of these use pulses to add to the nutritional value. But why are they important to the people we serve? Well, most importantly, of course, WFP recognizes that pulses add critical nutrients, proteins, B vitamins, and zinc and micronutrients. So these are critical for the beneficiaries we serve. They're always part of the rations, or almost always part of the rations we provide to people in emergency situations, including together with a cereal and a vegetable oil usually. But pulses are diverse, and diversity is very important to our beneficiaries because when people are in crisis, they like things they know, and so WFP pays very close attention to trying to buy commodities, pulses in particular, that the beneficiaries recognize. In Syria, as an example, we'll be trying to reach 4 million people inside the country this year, and every family ration that we distribute will have 5 kilograms of either chickpeas or red lentils. So almost every emergency operation we have requires pulses, and we make every effort to get them to the people that need them. But the second goal, and again I hinted at this at the beginning of my talk, has to do with trying to end hunger in our lifetime. Those 804 million people that need assistance around the world that are not getting a nutritious diet. They can be helped, and pulses will play a critical role in that because pulses, of course, are environmentally sustainable, they're nutritious, and there's plenty of them around to meet the needs of those people. I think this message that I was trying to convey was captured best in the video that's on your website that was produced by Pulse Canada, and the title is Pulses, the Food of the Future. If you haven't seen it, I think you should look at it. It tells you every reason why pulses are the right food for the future. Now, what does WFP do to try to end that chronic hunger? First, we try to support programs that reach women, pregnant women in particular, and young children, because if you can provide the right nutrients to women and children, then they're not stunted. And what stunted means is they lose some of their development capacity, their growth capacity, and their intellectual capacity, and once it's lost, you don't get it back. So if we could all work to target those women and children, we would make the world a better place. And we all know, of course, that pulses will play a big part in that. But WFP also supports school feeding. And as Alexis said, school feeding activities are critical. We get commodities from the Department of Agriculture for school feeding activities. And in every one of our programs that we have with them, except Bangladesh, we use a pulse. And we serve over 20 million children a year in school feeding activities. And again, they're sort of tied to that first point, because if you have good school feeding activities, you can keep girls in school, and if you keep girls in school and they're healthy, then they'll raise healthier children. But finally, WFP also tries to support farmers, the smallholder farmers who produce actually quite a lot of beans but don't have the capacity to make sure that those beans are marketable. Small things, like in Ghana, we're trying to help farmers with just how to dry and store their beans. Because if they can dry them and store them even a little bit longer than they normally do, they can get them to market not only in good condition, but they'll get a better price. So WFP tries to undertake a lot of activities that utilize pulses. We believe they are, in fact, the food of the future. And I want to congratulate you on having 2016 the year of the pulse. I firmly believe that the World Food Program and the Global Pulse Confederation share the same vision, that we can sustainably end hunger in our lifetimes, and that increasing the consumption of pulses in all of their diversity and nutritional richness will be a critical element in the achievement of that goal. So thank you again for having me.